Da-na, da-da-na-na, da-na-na-da, da, da-na-na-da, da, da-na-na-da-na-na-da, da-na-na-da. James Gunn Superman. I just saw it last night. Amazon Prime gave out early screenings through Fandango if you're a member to Prime, so I went and saw it a couple days early, and I enjoyed my experience. Now, I had James Gunn's Superman as my number one most anticipated movie of 2025. It was the number one movie that I was looking forward to the most, and the movie that I felt like I could be absolutely certain was going to be my favorite movie of the year. And it very well could be. But I didn't love it. I didn't love it the way that I was really hoping to love it. Now, first of all, the acting, the casting. The casting was spot on. The actors all were doing a fantastic job. David Corenswet as Superman, Clark Kent, Kal-El, he's fantastic. He looks the part, he acts the part, he feels wholesome and altruistic the way that Superman is supposed to be. And that's something that I really think James Gunn nailed. Now, James Gunn directed, wrote, and produced this movie. So he was doing a whole lot of heavy lifting for this entire project. His fingerprints are all over it. And I feel like maybe he spread himself a little thin because other projects where maybe he was doing a little less, like the Guardians movies, feel like a more complete product. Now, this movie, they nailed the Superman persona. He's supposed to be the beacon of light, a beacon of hope, the perfect role model, and I feel like he really was that in this movie. There's a scene where there's a giant battle and he saves a squirrel, just to really highlight how compassionate and how he cares about every single living thing, not just humans. He cares about everything. And I thought that was wonderful. And conversely, on the other side, Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor was fantastic. Was he as good as Gene Hackman or Kevin Spacey? Yes, I think he was actually. I think he was just as good, if not better, than any of those guys who have tried to fill that Lex Luthor shoe. And I think he did a great job. He even had moments where he really was pure evil. Now, Lex Luthor's character is driven by envy. He's envious of Superman. He wants to be the top dog on the planet, but because of Superman's supernatural, otherworldly strength, he is not the top dog. Superman is. And he hates that. He hates Superman for that. And instead of showing us that through Lex's actions, we get a part in the end where he literally just says it. Now, I'm not going to give spoilers in this video because I do want everyone to go and see it without knowing what's going to happen. So this is a spoiler-free review. But I was a little disappointed that James Gunn didn't do a better job letting Lex Luthor's actions speak for that. But there's one scene in particular where he does something really overtly horrible and evil. For a PG-13 movie, the scene was pretty dark. So I was happy with that type of scene because it didn't pull the punches. Now, there was a scene removed because it did poorly with test screenings where Ultraman punches Krypto, and people hated that. And I find it funny because the scene that I'm talking about where Lex Luthor does something absolutely heinous to a human, that scene's perfectly fine, right? No one bats an eye. But when a super dog gets punched, now audiences don't like it and they removed it. I don't like that because the point of a scene like that is to really make the audience root against this villain. And when he finally inevitably loses to our hero, it's extra triumphant. It feels extra vindicating because we hated this guy so much. So I hate that they removed that scene. Speaking of Krypto in the trailers was one of the biggest things, probably the biggest thing that I was wondering, is this going to work? I don't know if this is really going to work and serve a Superman movie with throwing Krypto in. And surprisingly, it worked really well. And it makes sense because everybody loves dogs. Some really cute dog humor going on with Krypto. And Krypto worked fantastically. And I think when it's all said and done and the dust settles after this movie drops and people have seen it. I think Crypto is going to be the number one thing that people talk about and remember because he's the star of this movie. He gets more screen time than most of the other characters. So, clearly a really important character in James Gunn's eye. Now, I do want to talk about the screenplay because I feel like the screenplay is where this movie really falls short. And I was hoping to have one of the greatest, if not the greatest, superhero movie experiences of my life. And because of the screenplay, that didn't happen. There was things that were done in this movie that I felt like didn't make the most sense. The threat that we have to watch unfold in the final climactic battle, it just felt like not a very relatable threat. It felt like the type of threat that just was so ridiculous and so grand and so out there, which you would expect from a James Gunn movie. But I felt like maybe for this Superman movie, it would have been best served by having a more grounded type of threat. And I think this movie is probably, in my estimation, the greatest Superman movie I've ever seen. The 1978 movie with Christopher Reeves is fantastic. It's probably the golden standard for Superman movies, but I think I enjoyed this one more. I think it's more fun, it's more entertaining. And from a story perspective, it's not like the 1978 one blew me away with its screenplay. And I don't have many positives to say about Zack Snyder's Man of Steel. But the one thing I will say that I think Zack Snyder understood more than James Gunn did is General Zod at the end. It was a more grounded, more personal type of enemy, type of conflict. General Zod, he's trying to take over the Earth. He's destroying the city. That feels like a more tangible, more grounded threat than what we got in Superman 2025. And I just had problems with the resolution of it as well. Mr. Terrific was terrific in this movie. His character, I would have liked to see more backstory about his character, and maybe we'll get it in future iterations. But his character was really, really entertaining, and I liked the scenes, especially there's a needle drop moment where he's beating people up, and that's what James Gunn really excels at, the needle drops. Playing a song while having action going on. He's the best in the business, and honestly, he's the best in the business when it comes to adapting comic movies. He understands the assignment. It's goofy, it's silly, he has fun with it, he stretches the format of film to try to really accommodate that comic style, and I think in Superman he does a good job here. The problem I had with Superman is a lot of it felt all over the place. The flow of it didn't feel very fluid. There was a lot of moments that I felt like were kind of forced. It didn't feel very natural flowing into it. And that just is a screenplay problem. It's more so an issue with the writing, and maybe it should have been in production another year or two to really iron out these kinks, because there's a couple moments I even looked at like, what? Like, I mean, again, it's James Gunn, so we can expect that, but Anthony Carrigan is in it, who I absolutely love. He's from the show Barry. He was fantastic in Barry, and ever since then, he's been slowly but surely getting some more roles, and I love to see him in a big budget blockbuster like this. And his character was interesting, but didn't get a lot of screen time. Wasn't very fleshed out. And there's one moment where it just felt so ridiculous. He's like walking into the darkness, and he looks back, and it's supposed to be like dramatic, but it felt goofy. It was kind of goofy. Skylar Gisondo from The Righteous Gemstones, another actor that I really, really like and enjoy. He was also in Santa Clarita Diet, a show that Netflix really messed up by not bringing back. But that's a whole nother story. Skylar Gisondo as Jimmy Olsen in this movie was fantastic. He was written as the comic relief, and it was hilarious. But that kind of leads me into another issue with this movie is moments that were supposed to have serious gravity are kind of broken up by having a little quip thrown in. I love me a good quip. I love laughing. But when it breaks up the drama and the gravity of what's happening on screen, then I don't think that the quip or the joke is serving the movie in the best way. I don't think the laughter is worth taking away the melodrama. And I think that there's several moments in this movie that do that, and I'm like, ugh, it should have been more serious. Now, I will say there is an armbar thrown in here, which I really appreciate jiu-jitsu being thrown in here. I think that's awesome. But that's another issue I had with this movie. I felt like it didn't showcase Superman's powers as well as it could have. A lot of scenes felt like video game cutscenes. My eyes all over the place. Now I saw it in XD on a giant screen in a Cinemark theater, but my eyes are all over the place trying to keep up with what's going on, and I almost felt bored in certain moments with the action because it's like I don't feel the punches. I don't feel the action that's going on. And maybe that's another thing that Zack Snyder's Man of Steel did a little better. But that's the last compliment I'm going to pay Man of Steel, I promise. But all of that to say, I really enjoyed my experience with this movie. It is a fun movie. There's characters that don't have a lot of screen time that I really felt like were just thrown in, and it felt like it was juggling too much, maybe. I think that might be another issue I experienced with it. I'm still trying to digest and think about how I felt about it truly, but this is my honest opinion of Superman. Hawkgirl barely was in it. Don't even know what her powers really are. There's a geopolitical conflict going on in this movie, and what's interesting is Superman has to deal with social media. He has to deal with people's opinions. He has to deal with cameras in his face, making it look like maybe he's doing something when really something else is happening, taking things out of context. So there's this element thrown into this movie, which has never been in a Superman movie, which I found interesting. But yeah, there's a geopolitical issue going on, and it clearly feels like it's talking about the Israel-Palestine conflict. It was kind of weird, but interesting. I'll say it's interesting to think about. Superman lives in America, right? He lives in the United States of America. But he acts on his own autonomy. He is his own being who has no real master, no one to answer to. So when he sees it fit, he's going to go and intervene in conflicts. But because he lives in the United States, or at least because he seemingly lives in the United States, because no one knows who Superman really is, but he's always in the United States, so it's safe to assume that he's from the U.S. Fingers get pointed at the U.S. because it feels like he's acting on behalf of the U.S. when really he's acting on his own accord. So I found that interesting as well. So there's a lot of interesting stuff going on in this movie, but overall, it wasn't as cohesive of a movie as I was hoping it would be. And that's just my honest take on Superman 2025. If you have Letterboxd, follow me on Letterboxd at Tay Talks Talkies. I gave it a 4 out of 5 because I really enjoyed it. I really, really did. And I think my expectations being so high is what led for me to have a slightly underwhelming experience. Not to say I was underwhelmed completely, but I was just underwhelmed when I compare it to what I was expecting. And for that, that's kind of my fault, but I was really expecting an incredible superhero movie. James Gunn said this was his dream his whole life to make this movie, and Superman's the comic that got him into comics, and with the quality of his Guardians movies and even his Suicide Squad movie, I was really expecting this to be his magnum opus, his masterwork, and maybe one of the sequels will be. But for now, I have to give it a 4 out of 5 when I was really hoping it would be a 5 out of 5. But that's all I got for you guys. That's Superman's review, and I really enjoyed it. So go see it in theaters. Go support the theater-going experience. We need to keep theaters alive. Respect the theater. When you go to the theater, pay attention to the movie. Have fun. Listen to the crowd. It's a great experience. And that's all I got for you guys. Subscribe to my channel if you love movies. I promise you, if you love movies, this is the channel for you. And as always, stay tuned. Tay out.